Welcome back to Old World Fanatics. It's just Gomo here, solo. I'm actually on location, traveling for work. So sorry, I'm not in my usual spot or my usual setup. So I'm hoping you guys can hear me. Had a little bit of brainstorm the other day about potentially. There's a lot of talk around vampires and Graveguard and how good they are and all that sort of stuff. And they are, so let's not get confused there. But I did have some thoughts, sort of wishful thinking more than anything, about how maybe you can try and combat them. And this is more of an ideas rant. Just a short video. I'd love to hear your comments. Is it all rubbish? Does it not work? Is it not even novel? It's because it really is theory hammering, and I just wanted to get people's opinions. Bit of a clickbait title, obviously. Can this beat the Graveguard? But it is also relevant not just for Graveguard, but just Undead in general, and sort of taking back some of the control that you don't get when you're playing against Undead, basically. So if this is the first time watching us, this is just Old World Fanatics. Obviously, we do weekly podcasts and other tactics and other battle reports for Old World. So if you're interested in that stuff and you haven't seen us before, please leave a like, subscribe, add some comments, and yeah, if you are so inclined, jump on our Patreon over on patreon.com/oldworldfanatics. But apart from that, I'll just get into it. And as I said, I'm not on my usual setup, so hopefully I don't screw up the screen share here. But anyway, Graveguard. So it's a picture of a Alex from 2 Plus Pod smashing me with his Graveguard, as you can see them there. And they are, backed up by the usual Mortis engine, screams, all that sort of stuff, sitting in a forest, I think, in that one. But just to paint the picture of why particular Graveguard are so good, and there is other units like the Tomb Guard for Tomb Kings, which are sort of good, but they don't have some of the other things that the Graveguard get. But basically, the Graveguard, obviously, in Old World 1.5, as we know, infantry on objectives, things like that, are just very hard to shift. On top of that, obviously, Graveguard, being undead, get to raise up. So if you're playing Vamps or you're playing Tomb Kings, you get access to Invocation of Nehek, or however you say that, or Arise, which is basically an uninteractive, or at least if you're the opponent, an uninteractive leadership test. So it's not magic. You can't dispel it. Most of the time, unless there's for some other ungodly reason, the undead player will have a BSB, which allows leadership rerolls. So basically, they're always going to, whatever damage you throw into some of their more, valuable units, they're going to, as much as possible, going to raise them back. And so that's the frustrating bit. So you either, if you attack their Graveguard unit, which is their expensive and very, very potent infantry unit, they're going to raise that back. They might not raise back zombies. They might not give a crap about that, but this type of unit, they will. So, it can be frustrating, and then you lead to not even trying to take it on, and you basically play the whole game around avoiding this unit. On top of that, with the Graveguard particularly, they can have great defense, given that they can get a 5-up regen, I think, or 5-up ward. I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, the banner that gives them that. Plus, they've obviously got weapon skill buffs, which is obviously helps their defense as well. So given a suitable, reasonably large size, they're pretty much a very pain in the ass to defend or to attack. And so this is the point again. It's a command subphase, a command phase type action, which is done in the undead player's turn. It's just if they're not engaged in combat, the character can do his leadership test, and then he gets to raise up that unit. So if you throw stuff into it, chances are, by the time you get to engage it, it's sort of back to where it was, which can be mightily frustrating, as you could imagine. But is this the weakness, I guess? Now, again, maybe I'm just stupid and people do this all the time. I certainly haven't seen it done, and maybe there's a reason, which I'll get to in the next couple of slides. But for both undead armies, this is basically, I think it's pretty much the same rule. Basically, you have to raise, they're added to the front rank until it reaches its minimum rank bonus, and then it's added to rear ranks or the front rank and can't be generally taken beyond starting size. That's sort of irrelevant here. But what I guess I'm getting at is, if it has more than one rank, it has to raise. Like, it can't go wider. It has to stay as wide as it was if it's got more than one rank. If it's got only the one rank, so you've blown it away and there's only one rank left, it can go wider. But again, this is that's where we need to get a bit of an FAQ. But given that the command unit has to be in the middle, if one side of that unit is blocked, it can't go wider. Like, it can't keep raising at one end because, again, the command group needs to stay in the middle, and raising is not a reform. So I guess, this is my this is my premise, I guess. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is where I'm going with it. So, a word of warning: you need to have a lot of ducks in line to get this right, or even to get to a point where this could happen. But I just thought it was interesting, bit of a thought experiment, if this could be possible. And certainly with slight list adjustment, my game with Alex could have turned out different, at least with that unit, if I was using my brains with this sort of strategy. Again, assuming I could line up my ducks. So take that for what it's worth. Yes, so this is my game against Alex again, just showing what his Graveguard unit looked like before one of my shooting attacks. And again, Alex can correct me if I'm wrong, because I think there's obviously a Word of Pain spell up here, so they're down to toughness 3. I was playing Beastmen. I can't remember what I threw at them, but it must have been Voltides. But then I was thinking, wouldn't have thought Voltides would do this much damage, so I can't remember. I just rolled well or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's frustrating when this happens, when you get them down to like 5 Graveguard. And again, this again, like what we just said at the beginning, it's an uninteractive, move that they get the next turn. In their turn, they just bring them back, and that's sort of technically what happens. Now, if I was smarter and I was thinking about this, and if I had slightly different list constructions, as I said, here goes the ducks in line. I've been playing Beastmen lately a lot more and taking the flying carpet. You have a lot of cheap shums, like you might have a level 1 there because you're throwing out Viltide. And then I just was thinking, well, hang on. Reserve move. Why can't I have done, now obviously not in this game, but in particular, that? So here what we've got is, especially, for example, with Beastmen, you're flying around movement 8. Often you'll fly out to Viltide and then you'll fly back. And in this case, again, ducks in line, people, caveats, but leave comments if this is annoying. You don't fly back if this happens, because you get to now take control, because it's your shooting phase. So you can throw in, we can go through some of this stuff, but maybe you got dark magic and you put some Doombolt on that unit. You have whatever it is, some just normal shooting. You get Word of Pain them down. You hit them with, Viltide or other magic missiles. And then you fly one of your other units up that has reserve move, plonk them behind 1 inch away. And they can't raise now. I mean, that's how I understand. In this case here, he can raise sideways because this is, we'll go through this, protecting the flanks as well. But if this unit had its second rank still slightly, it can't do anything else. It can't raise anymore. And so he's just an example that I did, because I was going to do this with my my models, but again, I'm away, sorry. So I just imagine you had this 24 unit of Graveguard. You have a reserve move ability through whatever, maybe it's your army, it's Wood Elves, whatever. And you blow the crap out of that unit. Like, because usually, again, you probably would just avoid it. But what I'm saying is there a play here where you decide over 2 turns to destroy it? And so the first thing you do is wipe it down. So in this case, through whatever, template weapons, shooting, ballistic skill shooting, artillery, whatever it is, and you're trying to knock it down. Ideally, to leave the second rank a little bit. That'll be ideal. But there's ways around that, I guess, too. And then you use your reserve move that you've got. Now, if this is a spell that you need, that obviously if you don't get the spell off, you can't do this. You might as well go back to plan A, which is what everyone else is doing, and losing to Graveguard. But if you can get this and use your power scrolls or whatever it is, you can then plonk, for example, here, imagine this is the shaman. He plonks in 1 inch away. Now he's going to die next turn. But the critical thing is they've gone past their command sub phase. They can't raise this unit now. Anything they raise can't be added on without becoming within 1 inch. So they're lost. It's just stuck at that same size, which means in your turn, providing they don't chaff you to pieces and stuff like that, then you can come in for the kill move. So it is a 2-move. As I said, we've got lots of ducks to line up. But I haven't run into this. I don't play Vamps a lot, so maybe this is a very common thing that they try and avoid. But if you go back to that picture with Alex, there was no avoiding of that. There was no, it wasn't that he was deliberately backing himself up. And realistically, if they're a big enough unit, which often they are 24, they can't really do much. If you can knock 2 ranks off, you can generally put your guy in somewhere, hopefully, I mean, that's not always the case. Obviously, you don't have access to 25 mil characters, then, you need bigger gaps. But again, look, I'm just trying here, guys. I'm just trying to come up with something. But now the other thing is, obviously, if there is still just 1 rank, sort of like what you saw with that other picture, you're going to have to try and protect one side. Because if you can stop them raising out 1, again, this is probably up for debate or not. But I feel like rules is written, if the command group's got to stay in the center, they have to raise like equal sides, 1 for 1, 1 for 1, 1 for 1. And if they can't do that because you've blocked it, or maybe there's another unit, often there is units because they're protecting their flank, they're probably not raising out sideways that much. But it is something to think about. And so just off the bat, when I was thinking about this yesterday, obviously, not mirror matches, but Undead into Undead. Tomb Kings have a lot of these options. They've got, the reserve move bubble spells. They're like Beastmen, can have fairly cheap characters that can fly around if you wanted to use that. And they've got cheap acts because of the bubble spell. They've got like maybe Carrion and stuff like that. They've also got reserve move built into the skeleton horse archers. Obviously, it's harder to get something like, I would imagine, depending on how it's positioned, it's going to be harder to get a cav unit behind there, but it's not impossible. So Wood Elves might have a play there, potentially. They've also got Warhawk Riders, things that can fly over fairly quick. Do they have reserve move? Probably not. But you get my point here. Dark Magic on the same key isn't so much the reserve move, but you got to think about what are the ways now to demolish that unit, at least 2 ranks off it or whatever it is, in order to give you the room to move into that space. And even things like Dark Magic become interesting because their signature spell is just a direct damage template over the top. If you can get Word of Pain off as well, it can do a lot of damage to an infantry unit, which is good. Again, Tomb Kings also have, Tomb Kings are probably good at it because they've also got good shooting, both. They can debuff down to toughness 3. They've got 5 up, auto hits basically, or at least hit on a 5 up with their archers. And they've got caskets, Screamer Skull catapults. They've got a lot of way to thin that unit down fairly quickly. And then hopefully reserve move in, block it, and then hit it next turn. The other thing is, if you can't use the reserve move, then just move the Graveguard unit. And I guess that comes where Windblast comes in. And often you will see that things like the Mortis engine, that's what I'm sort of illustrating here, is sitting behind that unit. Maybe it's a Necromancer, maybe it's Banshees, maybe whatever it is sitting behind that unit. Again, a lot of times you've tried to avoid it or, take out other stuff. Vamps have so much, if you get too close, they scream at you. So there's a lot of issues here. But at the same time, I still think there is a bit of play there where you hit them hard. And sorry, that keyboard shortcut doesn't work. You hit them hard, you wipe that list, that back rank, even 1 in this case, rank will help. It gets pushed back 2 inches. This even works better in a way because they can come within an inch of their guys. But now that you've done that, in this case, they really can only raise, I don't know what the FAQ would be here, but can they raise 3? Can they raise 4? I don't know, but they definitely can't. No, you couldn't raise 4. You can only raise 3 because you can't have an incomplete weird rank with your other weird units sitting inside it. So like, in here you've been able to at least stop it raising that whole unit back in some sense. So I think Wind Plus has some play potentially as well, and given elementals a lot probably more accessible than reserve move, this could be something that is useful. Again, ducks in line, you've got to get the spell off. They've got to be positioned right. More importantly, you also have to be positioned in a way that to take advantage of it, because it almost feels like this is a 2-turn thing. You need to wipe it down, push it back, and then come in with a hammer unit and just wipe it. Easier said than done. But as I said at the beginning, grasping at straws a little bit. I'm sure there's some play here. Again, Tomb Kings could probably do this. They have good access to elementalism. So do Orcs and Goblins, and they could, 2 Rock Lobbers and 2 Doom Divers into that unit with a Wind Blast probably can do a fair bit of damage to that Graveguard unit. And also Itchy Nuisance debuffing the toughness. So, I mean, they could probably nail that unit a fair bit anyway as well, and then come in with something like, we'll go in that minute. But yeah, Bretonians, again, they probably can do this well with their artillery, their shooting as well. I'm assuming they have elementalism. And again, dark magic up there for some of the, there's heaps of, high elves are probably good as well, potentially, with their good shooting as well. So, and then, geez, even wood elves again, with they got hammer units. So I just think there's some ideas there that potentially might work, or at least get the vampire playing a little bit defensive, and you taking ownership of the movement phase again, because I feel like that's the problem with, and against Tomb Kings, the same deal. It's frustrating that you just don't get any, as long as they pass their leadership test, there's nothing you can do. And so what I'm trying to say is maybe there is something we can do. But yes, it will require a lot of ducks in the row. So I guess my takeaways, again, leave some comments, please. What do you think, guys? Is this something that just doesn't work? Can you block their back, guard the flanks, push them back if you had to, and then hit them hard with shooting, and send the boys in after that, I guess, is the key. And then let's get rid of these Graveguard units. Anyway, that's all I've got while I'm down here in Tasmania having a bit of a work trip. We'll be back on the pod one day late tomorrow if you are listening to this tomorrow. If not, tell me what you think of this strategy. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if there's any play in it and what other options your faction has. That'd be really good. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.
Old World Rankings. Ranking players worldwide. Find upcoming tournaments. View latest results. Search thousands of army lists. Global faction statistics. Old World Rankings. Free to join today.